Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Sackheads Against Tyranny. Tonight, maybe Clint, definitely BZ, tear through the gristle of today's screaming headlines and rip out the sinewy tendons of truth ensconced within, all from the hoary streets of Sacramento, Fornicalia, exposing the trembly toadies, the sniveling jackanapes, and fripperous fopdoodles infesting leftist and progressive ant farms and housing groups nationally. Featuring the absent and effervescent contrarian Sackheads Clint. Featuring Sackheads Clint. Featuring Sackheads Clint. Okay. Plus the unrestrained bulbosity of myself, the Zeppmeister. It's basically, potentially, doubling your pleasure with double the host's elements that, when combined, produce actually delayed borborygmus and, in some cases, true elegance. Some contents may have settled during shipping. Member FDIC, batteries not included, a warranty void in Montenegro. Welcome to our house, and thank you for being in the... Now, this is not easy to point to something, watching it on a screen. Now, which direction do I go? I gotta go. Nope, I don't go that way. I go this way. Okay, there we go. Welcome to our chat show. That's the Sackheads Against Tyranny. And with luck, you're listening to the show and you're in the chat room at shrmedia.com. If you want to watch, this is only the second night that we've had the option of doing this. You can watch, which is why this is here, to remind me to tell you that you can watch the SHR Media official 60s artifact right here. You can watch on the SHR Media YouTube channel, and we've just installed this because Facebook is not playing nice with us anymore. Facebook really isn't playing nice with much of anybody anymore, but I suspect that we'll be getting into that a little bit later in the show. But this is only the second time, however, that we've had the privilege of working with Periscope. So I started the show. This is where it gets confusing. I'm starting the show in... Let's see, I started it in Spreaker. That's where the vocal part comes in on Spreaker, and that's where you guys are chatting. And then I start YouTube, so that's 2. And then I start Periscope, that's 3. And then I start Ustream, that's 4. So it's a little bit... Yeah, this is one of the days where I wish I had a damn producer. I don't have a damn producer, but still and all... Be that as it may. By the way, it's Wednesday. It is 8/8/18. Is that enough 8s for you? Clint, is that enough 8s for you?
No.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Why are you trying to silence me?
No, I just forgot to turn the slider up. And that's where you say, slider, do we have some of those?
So do we have... I don't even know what a slider is.
Yeah, see, okay, good.
I certainly don't know what a producer is. We had a producer... We've had a couple producers.
Yeah, but see, that was before my time.
One went MIA, which is, I mean, I guess, I don't know. And then one is, I guess, is Sean kind of a producer?
I guess he would be a behind-the-scenes producer.
Right. Well, most producers are behind the scenes.
Right, but I mean, occasionally he'll stick his face in. I mean, I've had him on my show. We've had him here as a guest on his own network. He can't be a guest,
yeah. He can't be.
That's kind of weird.
He can't be a guest. He'll never be a guest. Yeah, but how are you?
I'm doing okay. I wrote down. I sent off a tweet which showed
What's
the board
that?
And some of the stuff. It's more that social media GURP that pay no attention. Anyway, I showed some of the stuff that we may be talking about up there tonight, and I hope that meets with your approval. And if I could get this cord behind me. One thing that I have not done yet is let's go over into chat and see how many people we have in chat. Well, hey, good. Welcome to Mike. You're in chat. Welcome to Mary Brockman. Mary Brockman. Welcome to Jan. Welcome to Dave Milner. And everyone is already in chat, all in their places with bright, shiny faces in chat. So welcome to the folks in that. You had a bunch of articles that you'd sent to me, 3 in particular. And one of them was a little bit about some Trump derangement syndrome kind of stuff. The funny thing about that is there's, again, like I found out last night, where do I start? There's so much to talk about, and there's so much stuff that's going on. I mean, should we even talk about the elections that occurred last night and the results that came in today? People were predicting a massive landslide of Democrats, and according to stats, Democrats showed up in pretty darn good numbers. Mm-hmm. And the GOP apparently didn't show up in quite so great a number. Ohio stayed red. We avoided having a governor in Michigan by the name of Syed. We got our first female Muslim representative. And so it's not the blue tsunami that everyone was predicting. On the other hand, I can't say that it's much of a great turnout by the GOP. And to me, that's concerning. This is the part where you talk.
I guess I'm curious as to why you think that's concerning.
Well, I would like to have seen a little bit more enthusiasm. What
among the Republicans or among the Democrats?
Among the Republicans. See, the Democrats are fired up, and they're fired out, and they're having a whole ton of internal strife.
Yeah, and they still lost.
Which, as far as I'm concerned, that's a great thing.
And they still lost, which is why I'm not concerned.
Okay, so what did they lose?
The Democrats?
Yeah.
Ohio.
Well,
the Ohio special election, that's a big one.
That's true, but they, let's see, what did we have? We had Michigan, Kansas, Missouri, Ohio, and I'm missing somebody else. There were 5 states that were having elections last night. So
yeah, but the big one that everybody was watching was Ohio.
Yes, it was.
That was the big one. Everything else, I don't know that there were really any.
That did stay red.
Yeah, I don't know that there were really any surprises anywhere else other than the Ohio, and that was, I think, a big loss for the Democrats because that was a state obviously they were hoping to turn because that has implications. But once again, Trump last minute comes out and holds a rally, and it stays red. So for me, the fact that Democrats turned out in the numbers that it seems they did. And still performed at or maybe a little bit below the level they were hoping to perform, and Republicans were not out in droves, is actually kind of encouraging to me. Not from the standpoint that the Republicans stayed home, but the fact that if the Republican Party gets their shite together and they're able to turn their voters out, I think they're going to defeat Democrats handily.
I think maybe what I'm saying is that the GOP and conservatives can't afford to make any assumptions whatsoever. They cannot assume that if they wait, that the polls, especially on Election Day, November 8th, especially on November 8th, don't listen to the polls, folks. Sign up and register Republicans. Get to the polls. Don't let weather interfere. Nothing like that. Don't make assumptions that it's going to be a red wave.
So I guess the other reason I was saying that the Democrats lost. Now I see what you're saying. I guess my position was why no they lost. I'm not concerned at all. They lost. They didn't win. They didn't win Ohio. The Democratic the socialists certainly underperformed.
Now, yes.
And
You're making a really good point about that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when you ask, I guess when you said you were concerned, and I'm thinking of it from a perspective of, well, wait a second, Ohio stayed red. The socialists got their butts kicked. Yeah, I'm not feeling bad.
All right. Now, you make an excellent point, and it's something that
I do that sometimes.
Yeah, from time to time. And I pointed that out on my show last night, is that pretty much everyone that AOC endorsed or was promoting in the past week or two, none of them pulled it out of the bag. So I'd forgotten about that temporarily. I was addled. So, you do make a good point. I think my underlying bottom line is this. We cannot be assumptive. We cannot think that this is for everything right now. This is for, I don't know. Am I going way overboard when I say that this really is for all the marbles come November?
You are.
Holding the House, and by that I mean, we're going to keep the Oval Office, fine. Okay, we know that in November. And I'm fairly assured that we're going to keep the Senate.
And that's all I give a shit about.
I'm pretty sure about that. I would, in an ideal world, like us to keep the House.
Yeah.
And some people are saying we may get, in the Senate, we may get up to 53, 54, right around in there. My concern is the House, and I'd still like to keep everything, if for no other reason than to watch leftist heads explode November 9th, realizing that they've had their arses handed to them in November of 2016 and also in November of 2018, when the opposite group, the opposite camp, usually sweeps everything away from the current holder of the White House. That's what I'd like to see.
I don't care about the House. They haven't done anything anyways. They haven't repealed and replaced Obamacare like they said they were going to. They got a tax plan through. Yeah, that's awesome. They didn't support that tax plan with significant cuts, in my opinion. So what is it they really did? Not a freaking thing.
Underperforming,
and
right?
Underperformed. So if that goes blue, quite frankly, the Republicans deserve it. And as long as we hold the Senate and the presidency, look, I've said this from the beginning. From the beginning, I've said I care about why did I support the candidate Trump? Supreme Court justices.
Right, okay.
You go back and
Bingo.
you listen to all of our shows, and from the beginning of the whole thing, I said I supported Donald Trump. Did I say he was my first pick candidate? Absolutely not. I made no bones about it. However,
not
once
mine.
he was the candidate, I support him 100%. I support him because, and I talked ad nauseum about this, the Supreme Court was going to be key, and it has proven to be that way. This will be his second nominee, right?
I think he's going to get a third.
I think he's going to get a third also.
Don't pass it around. I think he's going to get a third.
I think but we talked about this even back then. We talked about the fact that we said he's going to get guaranteed one pick, probably two, maybe even three. So we were talking about this way back when.
Yeah, we were talking about this in late 2016.
Yeah. And same with other federal judgeships. And we don't need the fucking House for that. We don't need the House of Representatives to make the significant impact that conservatives and the Trump administration can make long-lasting. All you need is the Senate and the presidency. And you need the Senate to confirm all your little judges that you put into play and power who are there for lifetime appointments. And you sit back for the next 20 years and congratulations, you have successfully set the stage and the course of America towards the conservative agenda for the next generation. And the House of Representatives can pass all the little bullshit laws they want, and you can get a super liberal Senate and a super liberal president and a super liberal House. And as long as you have that Supreme Court with those conservative judges, they can't do a whole lot of damage to our country. Granted, they can do stuff and they can go back and do things like pass laws to try and end around the judges, but eventually it's going to end up in front of those judges. So we may be screwed for a couple years while these cases make their way through the court system, but they're not going to do any long-term damage unless they get smart, they pull their shit together, and they amend the Constitution. That's where they can hurt us. But the Senate and the presidency...
Wait. Stop right there. Amending the Constitution. What are you talking about?
So if there's ever enough votes, because they politicize, name the issue. Let's say mass shootings, mass killings. They politicize it to the point where enough states, enough people, enough representatives in Congress vote for an amendment to the United States Constitution to repeal the Second Amendment. That is something that a lawful amendment to the Constitution, the Supreme Court would have to rule was constitutional. And so that's really the only, I say the only way, it's probably not the only way, but that is probably the major way where they could hurt the conservative cause in this country. Other than that, having a conservative Supreme Court that dictates and makes the interpretation for the law of the land and the judges that this president is putting forward, the fact that they tend to be pro-Constitution, pro-individual liberty, pro-2A, is key. That's key. That's the key to the whole thing. So that's just my opinion on it. I'm sure there are plenty of people out there who would disagree and want to keep the House for whatever reason. For me, really, the big games are the presidency, and really for this midterm, it's all about the Senate.
I got to tell you that I respect your opinion. That makes me really, really uncomfortable.
Which part?
The
fact that they can amend the Constitution and change everything?
No, not necessarily that.
What are you talking about? The House?
The not carrying the House will create a host of complications, which may end up for Trump. It may end up being a lot of Sturm und Drang. But
he's already got complications.
I don't think he needs any more. Sometimes, okay, let's be honest. A few times more than sometimes, he can be his own worst enemy.
Sure, he can.
And trying to get, God, how do I put this? Maybe I should put it this way. I don't want to give the fucking leftists anything. I don't want to give them an inch. I don't want to give progressives anything. I don't want to give leftists anything. I don't want to give the American media maggots anything. I don't want to give the Democrats anything. I don't want to get the Democrat socialists anything. I don't want to give AOC anything. It concerns me that the Republicans and the GOP, I want them to have veins between their teeth. I want them to be motivated for fighting to keep all of their seats.
But you know what?
But here's the thing. It concerns me that I don't see that.
But the people that are in the House of Representatives, like Paul Ryan, for example, and you look at some of the other Republicans that are in there.
Yeah, Ryan doesn't make any difference anymore.
They haven't done a thing.
True.
They haven't done anything to help Trump. They haven't done anything to further the conservative agenda. They haven't fulfilled any of their campaign promises in terms of repealing and replacing Obamacare, which they've ran on that for how many stinking years in a row. They don't deserve to keep their seats. The Republican Party in the House of Representatives,
I get it. In an ideal world,
does not deserve,
I get what you're saying.
They do not deserve to keep the power. And quite frankly, I think if they lose power, I think that would serve in the House. I think that would serve a couple purposes. Number one, those people would get exactly what it is they deserve.
Okay.
I've said this before. I am a Republican. I am a conservative, but not at the expense of what is right. Those people do not represent their constituents. They do not follow through with their promises. They are part of the swamp. So if they get flushed in the general election, I think that's good for our republic. I don't care if they lose those seats to the Democrat. sometimes it's better to have that in there, at least in the short term. In 2 years, hey, maybe run somebody who gives a shit and is actually going to follow through on something. And in 2 years, the House isn't doing anything anyway. They are already not doing anything to protect Trump, or not even to protect him, but to help him out. They're not. They don't do their job. Shit, they can't even pass a budget or legislation. What, they just did it maybe for the first time, and they sent it to his desk, but he said, "What? Don't ever send me something like this again."
Yes, he did.
Yeah,
he did say that.
So you can't even do your job right. Your hearings mean nothing. You're not holding your contempt cites and threats mean nothing. Your hearings mean nothing. You are a joke. The House of Representatives has become a joke, and they have legislated themselves out of a job because they've legislated all the power to regulatory agencies and so forth to interpret the rules for themselves, which is why Trump just lost, or not Trump, but the administration just lost. What case did they just lose? Was it the DACA case? Because they said you can't stop DACA now. You can't stop DACA because Congress has given the authority to interpret the laws based on the administration. Obama lawfully said this, and because he could do that, you have to show cause why you think whatever else, right? So Congress has legislated themselves out of a job. It means the House of Representatives mean nothing. The only thing that it means is if they want to bring impeachment charges against Trump. I think Trump is going to make that look like a political freaking ploy, which it obviously would be. You look at all of the evidence for the charge; nothing's been presented. You look at the FBI investigation and all of the partisanship that's gone into that, and the evidence of the partisanship that's gone into that. Sokolow laid out a great case the other night on Hannity.
You mean Jay Sekulow?
Yes.
Jay Sekulow.
About everything.
Of ACLJ is a sharp cookie.
He is. And the Senate would not convict him based on that. So fuck the House of Representatives. Every single one of them, with the exception of maybe a couple. Trey Gowdy, Jim Jordan, maybe.
Trey Gowdy's going away. He said that that's it for him.
He's going away, yes, but there is room for him potentially in the administration.
Yes. Let me put it this way. He's not going away. He's not running again.
Correct.
And Trey Gowdy is I love the hell out of Trey Gowdy.
I do too.
Now, let me throw this out there too.
Yeah. I mean, you don't think he could survive the House, or he could spin that to look? Of course he could, and it would be so transparent why they would be.
It concerns me, number one, that they're not fighting like I want them to fight. Okay, and I understand what you're saying. You can say, all right, history has indicated that's what's happened in the past, and the best indicator of future performance or the lack thereof is history, what's happened in the past. Okay, I get that.
If this were, and BZ, to be fair and clear, if we were talking about the Senate, we would be having a totally different conversation.
Okay, I understand that aspect as well.
Okay.
But I've been reading a lot of Kurt Schlichter articles. I've loved Kurt Schlichter ever since he started to read. Since I started to read him a couple of years ago on townhall.com. I read his articles here, and he is a veins in the teeth kind of guy. Give nothing to nobody in terms of these leftists and progressives. That's the part that concerns me, is that if you give them an inch, they will take a mile, and yes, they will make impeachment proceedings, and you may be completely, fundamentally, irrevocably correct that at the end of it, they will not acquire an impeachment, because if they hold the Senate, right, I get all that. But I'm still back at give them nothing. So that's what concerns me.
I guess here's what I'm
about November.
I get that, but here's I come down to this. I teach my kids principles matter. I teach my kids that sometimes you have to sacrifice even perhaps what you think may be best in the short term for yourself, because you have to stand upon your principles. Principles are everything. And the principles that, unfortunately, a significant amount of Republicans, really a significant number of people, period, in the House of Representatives have shown, the overwhelming majority of them, in my opinion, lack the principles necessary to maintain their seat. And that's not just Republicans, that's Democrats also. And hey, maybe everybody gets thrown out and the Republicans still maintain power, and that's great. However, the principles of our republic, the principles of our liberty and our ability to govern ourselves is reliant upon the fact that we do not maintain people in power that feel that they can impose their will upon the people, that their agenda is more important than the will of the people they serve. And that is exactly what's happened at the House of Representatives. So in order to maintain those principles, at least from my perspective, that is far more important than the short-term discomfort of having Democrats get the win, so to speak. The principles of our country far outweigh any feeling of little superiority that they may get because they happen to take the House. And look, if the Democrats take the House, that is 100% the perspective I'm gonna have on it. Look, the principles of who we are and what we're supposed to be and expect out of our elected officials were upheld. The people who were underperforming, at least in theory, hopefully the good ones don't go out, right? But the ones that don't have the true best interest of their constituents at heart need to go. And granted, you may vote somebody else in there that is playing the game, but for the other side. But you know what? Then in 2 years, once they have shown that they do not represent the interests of their people or they do not uphold the tenets of the Constitution or any of that, well, then they should get voted out also.
You have upset the chat room.
Cool.
And it's great because the chat room is going like crazy. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people in the chat room.
Yeah.
And that's wonderful. And so I said after the break, if anybody wants to call, and they can call on Facebook, I just Bluetoothed the phone into Facebook so we can take a call. So if anybody does, in fact, want to call after the break, and we can continue this discussion.
Yeah, and I'm just going to tell people right now, if you're looking to get into an argument with me or whatever, I'm not going to – I understand the perspective of the importance of maintaining the House, but I am not willing to sacrifice that. I'm not willing to sacrifice my principles for that. And you can yell and scream, get pissed off, whatever it is, but me as an individual, I'm not willing to sacrifice my principles on having those people who deserve to be thrown out just because whether they have an R or a D next to their name, just for the simple sake of maintaining control.
Okay. On that note, we've got about one more minute before we take a break.
I love it when people get fired up at shit I say.
I think it is too. And see, that's the difference between this show and a lot of other shows is, if you want to, we finally have the ability. We're this close now to having our 1-800.
That's close for those that can't see.
I know. We're having, but for the people that are just listening, this close, I'm holding my fingers maybe about a half-inch apart. We're this close to getting the 1-800 number functioning where we have conference calling, etc.
I thought we were getting a 976 number.
No. 1-800.
Yeah, no, Sean was supposed to answer that. Make lots of money. We were going to charge by the minute.
Yeah, 1-800.
Big guy, I think.
I think what was
Big guys?
I think it was going to be 1-800 plastic sheets and Wesson oil. Wasn't it going to?
That's too many letters.
Okay, we can't do that.
That's too many. Okay. No, that's the number to Bill Clinton's house.
Okay, all right. Well, tell you what, we're going to take a break. We're going to come right back, and Clint doesn't know this. We're going to talk about Trump, an interesting aspect about Trump in an article that Clint wanted to discuss. And then after that, I have a mystery article. And I haven't told Clint, I haven't given him any foreshadowing, but I found an article, and I know I'm over the break, but I want to finish my thought. I found an article right here from, of all places, The Atlantic. And it makes an interesting point, and because Clint can be a contrarian, and now we know that he's very set with principles, etc., I'd like to read him an article and then acquire his thoughts on it, and then lead with some other examples and see what he happens to see or think, rather, about those examples as well. So I've got everything set up for the phone call. If anybody wants to call in, that's fine. If you don't, that's okay too, because we'll rock and roll right on. Anyway, we're going to take a break and come back right in about 5 minutes. Don't go anywhere, please.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show. Also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcats Saloon Radio Show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through shrmedia.com, highplanestalkradio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender ever,
because truth is not always pleasant.
Hey guys, it's Sackhead Clint. I'm excited to tell you about a brand new show here on the SHR Media Network. I'm teaming up with the one and only, all-powerful, the bloviating Zeppelin, sitting here to my left, bringing to you a fresh new show here on the network. It's Against Tyranny. And we'll be picking up where the Sackheads left off. Excited to be with you, sir.
Sackheads Against Tyranny.
We're going to chat. We're going to chat Wednesday nights.
S-H-A-T.
Sackheads Against Tyranny.
Wednesday night, 11 p.m. Oh, it's the same time, right? 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific.
Same SAC time, same SAC channel.
Yep. SHRmedia.com.
See what I did there?
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
Hey, BZ. So the plan's working. You got rid of Sacco. Sean is now stepping away.
I never even saw him.
And I know, and insidious. You know, we talked about this for for the last 3 years, and finally coming to fruition.
You know I'm still in the room, right?
It's almost like he's here still. Did you hear that?
Yeah, it's kind of.
It's amazing. It's kind of
at you.
It's kind of eerie.
Kind of a poltergeist.
Like a poltergeisty thing.
Yeah, Sackheads Against Tyranny.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Welcome back to the Sackheads Against Tyranny. I'm Sackheads BZ. That's Sackheads Clint over there. Okay, how about now? Do you have nothing in your headphones?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. We'll have to trace that down at the break. Sorry about that. But luckily, we don't have too many audio cuts tonight, so that's a good thing.
Hopefully it's not one of those surprise me segments with audio cuts.
No. I'm not trying to capture you or anything like that. It's an issue that brings some philosophical questions. It happens to deal with law and the creation of laws. And I have some thoughts about it, and I am just curious as to what your thoughts were.
Yeah.
Because it's an issue that's occurred before. It's going to occur again. It's occurring in...
global warming.
No.
Oh.
Not that.
Oh.
But, now you want to do the Trump story, or
no?
You wanna,
I'm curious to find out what your story is, because it kind of sounds like it segues into the whole principles thing where I pissed everybody off.
And I kind of think it does.
Yeah.
I found this article in The Atlantic, and as anybody knows, The Atlantic does not necessarily lean to the right very much at all, and it brought up what I thought was an intriguing concept, and it's a concept that a lot of people, I submit, should be thinking about when they do this. And I know it sounds a little bit cryptic, but once I tell you the article and once I start reading it from it, you'll get the gist of it real quickly. And that's this. This is from The Atlantic. Enforcing the law is inherently violent, by Connor Friedersdorf from The Atlantic. A Yale law professor suggests that oft-ignored truth should inform debates about what statutes and regulations to codify. Yale law professor Stephen Carter believes that the United States would benefit if the debate about what laws ought to be passed acknowledged the violence inherent in enforcing them. He writes, "Law professors and lawyers inherently shy away from considering the problem of law's violence. Every law is violent. We try not to think about it, but we should. On the first day of law school, I tell my contract students never to argue for invoking the power of law except in a cause for which they are willing to kill." That's an interesting concept in and of itself. They are suitably astonished, but often annoyed. I point out, however, that even a breach of contract requires a judicial remedy, and if the breacher will not pay damages, the sheriff will sequester his house and goods, and if he resists the forced sale of his property, the sheriff might have to shoot him. And again, this is, now you see where the concept is coming in. This is by no means an argument against having laws. It is an argument, however, for a degree of humility as we choose which of the many things we may not like to make illegal. Behind every exercise of law stands the sheriff or the SWAT team, or if necessary, the National Guard. Is this an exaggeration? Ask the family of Eric Garner, who died as a result of a decision to crack down on the sale of untaxed cigarettes. We're going to get back to that case. This is just one example that he's making right here in the article. That's the crime for which he was being arrested. Yes, the police were the proximate cause of his death, but the crackdown was a political decree. The state or regulation we like best carries the same risk that some violator will die at the hands of a law enforcement officer who will go too far. That's up for debate as well. And whether the officer acts out of overzealousness, recklessness, or simply the need to make a fast choice to do the job right, the violence inherent in law will be on display. This seems to me the fundamental problem that none of us who do law for a living want to face, but all of us should. Now, I find that to be a very interesting article and kind of a challenging article. It was relatively short, but it asks, in my opinion, a whole bunch of questions. Are readers persuaded by the notion that some laws they would otherwise support are better repealed or never passed? That's a question that I had. Do the benefits outweigh the violence that may be triggered by attempts at enforcement? So, like I said, I had a whole bunch of questions after this article, and it kind of goes back to what I called, I had an idea or a thought a number of years ago. And in my own little perfect world, it was called the Constitutional Committee. And in my opinion, this might eliminate some of the issues. What I mean is this. Before each and every law gets passed, and I'm thinking mostly federally, but you could bring it down to a state level as well, I think that it should be run through a constitutional committee to ask these questions, because sooner or later these laws are going to have to answer these questions. The first one that I posed was, is this law constitutional? Does it conform to the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights? And if the answer is no, through this committee, and I know, you're involving a whole bunch more process. But in an ideal world, in terms of principles, and you were mentioning principles, I was thinking, okay, why don't we just get the bad crap out of the way up front? The second question I have is, what's the fiscal impact? People don't think about this. How is it going to be funded? Can we afford it? Nobody asks these questions. Nobody. And then the third question that this article brought up is, what happens when we have to enforce it? Now, this guy in the article brought up that Eric Garner case. And I'm okay, let me stop. And apparently you've got something to say, so hit it, because I want to bring up that example, but look at it in a different fashion that I think needs to be examined.
So there's a lot there. And
there's a ton to unpack.
There's a ton to unpack. So I guess I'm going to address first kind of the example he gives of, are all laws violent? I will agree with the idea that the enforcement of any law may lead to a violent action by not just law enforcement, but by the person who is the law is being forced against. But I disagree that the cause of the violence would be that particular law. So let's take the example of it would be not all laws, the tort, right? So let's take the example. He said, hey, it's a civil matter or whatnot, and if somebody refuses to pay, the sheriff then would seize the property and force the sale, and if that person resisted that, they could be shot, and it's a result of this law. Well, I would say my argument would be, well, no, it's not, because that law was enforced by the judge. And when the sheriff went out to enforce the wishes of the judge, the person then resisted, which is a violation of a different law, a criminal statute, because resisting arrest, using force, failing to obey a lawful order is a new violation. So that new violation and enforcement of that new violation would lead to the force, but not necessarily the judgment for whatever civil thing was posed in his article. And that's true with anything. If speeding is a law on the books, and from what I gathered from his article is speeding is violent if the officer stops somebody for speeding and then deadly force encounter happens, either the speeder against the officer or the officer against the speeder.
Yeah, or if you get into a pursuit.
But I would say no, because the speeding was attempted to be enforced by the officer, but once the individual resisted or failed to submit to the authority and fled, that's now a new violation, a felony violation, depending upon how they're fleeing, right? Or once that person pulls a weapon to resist the officer, you now have a felony violation that is being enforced. Or if the person is being taken into custody for a drug charge, and I'll use drugs because that's a famous one for Big L, right?
Sure.
And the officer now is in a fight, and force is used in that arrest. Well, it went from a drug violation to a resistance violation, either a felony resistance or a misdemeanor resistance. And could it rise to the level of deadly force? Of course it is. But that deadly force is in response to a new crime being committed by the suspect. So that's my response to that. Or the perceived crime from a suspect. So if an officer makes a stop, say, for speeding, and the guy is irate, female is irate, whatever it is, reaches under the seat, makes a statement like, you're not going to do this or whatever, and pulls out a wallet, cell phone in a manner and points it at the officer, and the officer perceived that, hey, I am about to be killed, and uses force against that individual, even though they are unarmed, there's a perception that a felony was being committed, whether or not a felony was committed. Do those words sound familiar?
Oh.
So So I think that I
yes.
disagree with the whole basic premise of the article as it's written. I would agree that the enforcement of any law could lead to a violent outcome ultimately, but not in response to that original law that's being enforced.
Okay, let me tell you where my brain housing group went when I concluded this article, because I'm kind of going somewhere, and particularly with a recent law in California. But I want to introduce this example, the one that the other guy introduced in the article, but from a different viewpoint. Okay, so there was the incident that the guy was talking about in the article about that 43-year-old guy in New York City named Eric Garner back in 2014. So here's what had happened. The NYPD got a call by a bodega owner, and a bodega in New York City is this little teeny market, and there's a billion of them in New York City. And this owner called because Garner was standing outside his store selling what they call onesies. And onesies are single cigarettes. And, hey, man, want a cigarette? Yeah, okay. What do you charge? I don't know what he charges for that. Anyway, you avoid paying taxes by doing that. Okay, taxes that the owner of that bodega is obligated to collect under New York law. Okay, so selling cigarettes outside his store is undercutting that guy's cigarette sales in the bodega, and the guy is also managing to avoid paying taxes to the state. So it's a little bit more complicated, but the deal is New York City declared that illegal. You can't sell onesies and you got to pay taxes. So the bodega owner calls and NYPD shows up because, that's what happens. You call the cops, they show up, and they try to solve a situation.
Unless you're in Sacramento.
Well, oh God, that's another story. So say what you want. I'm not here to address the New York response or even the death of Eric Garner himself. In an adjunct way, yeah, I am. But the means and the manner and what the cops did, etc., the end result is kind of more important than the individual himself. And what I mean by this is, sooner or later, we know, just like that guy said, somebody somewhere or a series of somebodies are going to refuse to obey any given law, period. So tasked with enforcing the laws in this example, cops are summoned to this bodega because they got a call for service, and this guy has a problem, and they want the cops to solve it. So when police are confronted by a person who refuses to obey a law or refuses in their presence to stop committing an illegal act, then, what are their choices? Their choices are pretty much binary. A or B. It's like a flow chart, okay? They can, number one, they can enforce the law, and they can actually lay hands upon a person who refuses to cooperate.
Which is that new violation.
Right. And or they can walk away. They can literally walk away. So they really don't have any options other than that. So then the issue...
And if they walk away, do the citizen that requested their...
I'm going there.
Oh, I apologize.
Exactly. That's okay.
Yeah.
So the issue then becomes the police are confronted, in this case, NYPD, they're confronted by a guy who refuses to obey a law in their presence, and let's say they walk away for whatever, I know, weird-ass reason. But that's a decision to be made, and they decide to do it. So what happens when that occurs is a precedent is set, as well as a clear signal to everybody that's in the immediate area and the people that are going to hear about this, that laws can be broken when the police receive any kind of opposition or pushback or even threat of force against them, whether it's verbal or physical. So what that kind of translates to is that law can't or won't, in some cases, be enforced. So that again translates to we, the occupiers of a given area, we can choose the laws that we want to obey and which laws that we're going to disregard. And that sounds strangely familiar with regard to the federal government. You know, so it's a binary law. You do it or you don't. And let me go back and throw this into the mix as well. And I don't know if you saw this video. There was a video that just broke this past week or this past weekend. And it's in Newark, New Jersey. And there's a cop car sitting at a curb, and this black dude gets up and starts. Now, at first, I thought, oh, this can't be true. That there's nobody in that car. The guy gets up, walks on the hood, jumps up and down on the hood. Now, the guy there's a guy, obviously on a cell phone, taking video of this. So this shit is going to go viral in seconds, and it did. And so he's doing this to the cop car, jumping up and down, and then only after I watch the complete end of the video do I discover there's a cop in this car. And it's marked Newark, New Jersey. And then there's nothing happening. I can hear in the background from this video a whole bunch of people in that area clapping, applauding, yelling, screaming, and he gets off, and only later do more cops begin to show up. But essentially, nothing is done. Nothing.
Did they contact him? Did they arrest him?
A lot of people walk around, and there's like a discussion with cops with their hands in their pockets, etc. But
the bad guy didn't go to jail?
No.
Was he even still there?
He kind of walks away and disappears into the crowd. It's like the person that's in the car doesn't care, or the people that respond later don't really much care. And, of course, this thing shot off like crazy. Now,
what's the context of the video? Right, so I guess my question is, like, was this at a crowd control situation where this person's not going to act by themselves?
This is a cop.
Because what happens the moment that cop puts hands on this individual? The video, the entire first half of that video is going to disappear, and just the part where this cop is beating the crap out of this poor defenseless individual who was just jumping on the hood of their car committing a vandalism is going to be shown. And none of that shit beforehand is going to be shown nor matter.
But the point is, though, the non-reaction by that cop makes the job of cops in that area every bit harder
everywhere
to conduct these days. Yes, absolutely,
everywhere,
absolutely,
because that's viral. Because that's everywhere.
That video went all across the fruited plain, and I'm sure it went all across the United States as well. So the point of this, maybe I should just cut to the point and then throw another example in there. The point of this is anybody that makes a law should decide that if you make onesies illegal, people are going to push the envelope. And the point of the Eric Garner case is essentially that the New York officers shouldn't have done anything about that at all. And essentially what they were saying is a man died for selling cigarettes. No. The meme should have been the man died for resisting the efforts of the police to place him under arrest for violating a lawful statute enacted by the city of New York and the state of New York for taxes. Mm-hmm. Now, let's stand back and talk about the removal of more freedoms and liberties. And that's this. California just passed a law, or excuse me, not the entire state, some venues in California, San Francisco and Santa Barbara, passed a law saying that if a waiter or waitress hands out straws, and no shit, I'm not kidding when I say this, that individual who hands out a straw without the customer asking, that's a violation of law. And Santa Barbara specifically, I'm surprised that San Francisco hasn't weighed in on this, but Santa Barbara said people that do that will go to jail. Okay. That's what got me back to this article. Did anyone in creating that law, or the smoking law, for example, did anyone think of when you finally reach the person like Eric Garner who says, no, I'm not doing that today? Did anybody ever think about that? And the answer is, I don't think so at all. Leftists want to rule our lives, rule the social construct in interchanges between people, and so few think of the ramifications of what it is that they've done. Because sooner or later, somebody's going to violate the law. And that's kind of my overarching point is, do you think about what you do before you do it? Because there are consequences for doing these things.
And I'd agree with the article if that's all it said, is there's consequences for doing these things. But the fact that he says that every law has the possibility of being a fatal is just false. Every law has the like I said, every law has the potential of leading to the enforcement of that law has the potential of leading to a violent or fatal encounter. But that violent or fatal encounter is not specifically because of the enforcement of that law. It is because that individual has broken another law, which is unlawfully resisting, delaying, obstructing, fighting, killing, injuring, whatever, a law enforcement officer in the performance of their duties.
Anyway, I thought it was an interesting article, and I completely agree with you.
That professor's a fucking moron.
With regard to every law. No, it's not every law. But I thought it was an interesting point, and I had a pretty good idea what I thought about it. And
if you think about it, there are only a couple laws that could potentially lead to somebody's death, right? A violent encounter or a violent reaction from law enforcement. There's only a couple. Either the actual violation of these laws or the perceived violations of these laws, right? Violent fleeing felon in the state of California, you can still shoot a bad guy in the back if they are a violent fleeing felon and there's no other means to apprehend them.
Right, and that goes back to Tennessee versus Garner.
Yep, it is still lawful to do that even in the state of California for now.
Until that other law that we haven't discussed yet, but we probably will.
But what is a violent fleeing felon? It's somebody who has committed murder. Perhaps maybe forcible rape at gunpoint and kidnapping, all rolled into one. Maybe not even one by itself.
Yep.
And it's accomplished through the use or threatened use of deadly force. So a terrorist, for example, a mass killer, somebody who is attempting to seriously injure or kill somebody else. It's really not. There are not a lot of laws out there that cops are going to have a violent confrontation unless somebody is just beating the snot out of an officer, and before they go unconscious, they have no choice but to shoot them before they go unconscious, and all the bad guy may have his fists. But even then, right, you're talking great bodily injury or death before that officer maybe goes unconscious. And I've been around cops a lot. I've never met one who has ever put on a uniform and said, "Oh man, I really hope I get to shoot somebody today."
Right.
Never.
No, in all my years, I've never met somebody that says, "You know what? I want to do something so over the top today that I'm going to find myself either immediately under arrest or in court for the next 10 years."
Yes, and even in a legitimate shooting, a legitimate use of force, that officer is going to be put through the ringer, even with a justified use of force. Look what happened with the Sacramento police officers and the Black Lives Matters protested that showed up at his wedding.
Oh, yeah. Hold on. Perfect. That's a perfect time to do this. Let's take that break, come back, and discuss that issue, because that rolls up perfectly into some other things that I wanted to cover tonight. Folks, you're listening to the Sackheads Against Tyranny, Sackheads Clint and Sackheads BZ. We're going to take a break, and we're going to be right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, "Yeah, I could probably do that better"? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capitol, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through shrmedia.com, highplanestalkradio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender ever,
because truth is not always pleasant.
Hey guys, it's Sackhead Clint. I'm excited to tell you about a brand new show here on the SHR Media Network. I'm teaming up with the one and only all-powerful, the bloviating Zeppelin, sitting here to my left, bringing to you a fresh new show here on the network. It's Against Tyranny. And we'll be picking up where the Sackheads left off. Excited to be with you, sir.
Sackheads Against Tyranny.
We're going to chat. We're going to chat Wednesday nights.
S-H-A-T.
Sackheads Against Tyranny.
Wednesday nights, 11 p.m. Oh, it's the same time, right? 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific.
Same SAC time, same SAC channel.
Yep. SHRmedia.com.
See what I did there?
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
Hey, BZ. So the plan's working. You got rid of Sacco. Sean is now stepping away.
I never even saw him.
And I know, and insidious. You know, we talked about this for for the last 3 years, and finally coming to fruition.
You know I'm still in the room, right?
It's almost like he's here still. Did you hear that?
Yeah, it's kind of.
It's amazing. It's kind of
at you.
It's kind of eerie.
Kind of a poltergeist.
Like a poltergeisty thing.
Yeah, Sackheads Against Tyranny.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the second hour of the Sackheads Against Tyranny. I am Sackheads BZ. Over across the way is Sackheads Clint. And we've got another hour to go on the Sackheads Against Tyranny show. It is a true shot show. And Clint brought up a very interesting point, and it was a local point here in Sacramento. And maybe you could tell the folks what happened here in Sacramento involving Black Lives Matter.
So one of the Sacramento police officers who was involved in the death of an unarmed African American child, baby, to hear them tell it. Basically, a guy who was breaking into houses. They went into a backyard, breaking into a sliding glass door. Officers got the call. They responded. There's body cam footage out there. He's failing to show his hands. He's failing to comply, and officers believe he has a weapon. They even call out gun, if I'm not mistaken,
Yep.
And they shoot him.
And it's at night.
And it's at night. And they shoot him, and he died. He did not have a weapon. However, you can look at the video and say, yeah, he was acting as if he did. It was a reasonable use of force, in my opinion.
And like everything else, let me throw this caveat in there that I'm sure you were thinking also. If you comply with law enforcement, you probably won't
survive
get
that
shot.
Injury. Yeah, you survive that encounter. You go to jail for being under the influence of drugs or
whatever it was.
whatever else, because I think that came back in his toxicology. So, fast forward now to one of the officers. By the way, is black.
Yep. He
has yet to be identified by the Sacramento Police Department, but BLM found out who these guys are somehow. How, I don't know. I don't have the officer's name. Honestly, I wouldn't give it if I had it.
It wasn't in the media.
It wasn't in the media. I wouldn't give it if I had it, but I don't know who the officer is, who the officers were. But I do know that one was African American and was getting married. Was it last weekend or this week sometime?
Yes, just this past weekend.
And BLM crashed the wedding. Basically goes in and confronts the officer and asks how he can sleep and asks how he can be celebrating and makes a stink on this guy's wedding day as he's sitting there with some of his other groomsmen. Well, people finally whisk these fucking assholes out, and they issue a statement. I believe it was KCRA Channel 3 News locally in Sacramento that interviewed them. And BZ, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm going on like an hour sleep and my brain is not completely with it. But so correct me if you have different information. But the BLM representative or whoever they're interviewing essentially says, I know it's the happy, and I'm paraphrasing. Yeah, I know it's the happiest day, supposed to be the happiest day of this officer's life, but this kid will never have a wedding, and we want to make sure that this officer remembered this for the rest of his life, and he'll remember his wedding day for the rest of his life, and he'll certainly remember what happened here for the rest of his life. And they were essentially asked, well, don't you think that's a little over the top? And they said, no. Somebody is not here anymore, and they will never be alive again, so it's absolutely not over the top. We want to confront them when they are the most vulnerable in a non-violent way to make them as uncomfortable as we can, is essentially what they said.
And you're absolutely correct. That's a very good paraphrasing of what those people said. Now let me back up a little bit and ask you this question. I know you know the answer. Where'd that come from?
Where did what come from?
Maxine
Waters.
Yes,
Maxine Waters.
Thank you.
Yeah,
exactly.
They're taking her marching orders for conservatives and applying it to their cause. It's the new playbook. It's the new rules for radicals for the modern progressive socialist, whatever your particular cause is.
And what they're hoping, I'm sure of this, is for a reaction from a human being so that they can point fingers and say, look, it wasn't us that were doing anything wrong. It's the person who hit us in response or threw water on us in response. And I'm saying one day, if people keep doing this because of the nature of humans, they're going to find the wrong person on the right day who just had their mom or their dad pass away, or that just their wife just got killed in a vehicle accident the day before, and they confront this person at the wrong time, and there's going to be something very, very bad happen.
I would argue, BZ, that these people are doing things that actions and words that are likely to invoke a violent response.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far away in California, there was a penal code section called 415 PC, and part of that.
I'm glad you caught on.
Part of 415 PC, it no longer is in that section, but at one time when I first came on in the very early 70s, a portion of 415 PC in the state of California was words or phrases that are sufficiently challenging that you know that you're going to get some kind of an inherent reaction from people. And you could arrest somebody under the 415 PC section. It was a misdemeanor for doing exactly that. Today, that portion of 415, that it doesn't exist, but it did exist.
I want to read you what 415 parenthetical 3 actually says. So it's any person who does these things that shall be punishable in the county jail for a period of not more than 90 days. But Section 3 says any person who uses offensive words in a public place which are inherently likely to invoke an immediate violent reaction. I would submit that that fits.
And that's a current version of the penal code?
That's a current version of the penal code. Yeah, but it says in a public place. So if the wedding venue was on private property, can you argue public place because it's an event that's being held that's open to other people? Perhaps, but you could also use 2, any person who maliciously and willfully disturbs another person by loud and unreasonable noise. So depending on how they were acting, perhaps that's another tool that you can use. Another thing is, I would say that Black Lives Matter was dealing with the off-duty officer, the way he was because of that officer's position as a peace officer, and perhaps even because of his race. If they made comments,
undoubtedly,
if they made comments related to why is he doing that job, in which case now you're going down hate crime territory. The problem is, nobody is going to take these people to task in the city of Sacramento.
Absolutely. And all sorts of leftist urban rat cages all across the United States. You are absolutely correct about that.
There is no PD in the world that's going to write that ticket. There is no DA in the world, at least in the areas we're discussing, who's going to file that charge.
Or in California.
And yeah.
It's a hell of a sad commentary, but it's very true. Now, we've seen abrogations of the police occur all across the United States. It was in Berkeley. It was in UC Berkeley. It was in Spokane. It was in
Berkeley,
Portland.
I like how Berkeley PD is now under fire for doing something that they've been doing for a while, and that is releasing mugshots and names of people they arrest. And now the left is all up in arms because the people they arrested,
they shouldn't be identified.
We're Antifa. And what's their argument? What's their argument? Their argument is, well, they shouldn't knowingly release the names and pictures of the people that were arrested because they know that other people want to do violence against them. This is the same side who releases the names and public information of police officers that they don't like.
Right, and it's also the same side of people, leftists, who decide that they want to name the addresses and the names of people who contribute money to causes that leftists don't like.
Yep.
How odd that is. And I'll take it even a little bit further because this has been personalized in Sacramento, for example. I happen to know of a particular incident, and I'm sorry that the Sacramento Police Department has responded this way, and I'll say it, and I'll say it again. There are many, many individuals on the Sacramento Police Department and all across various police departments that are good people who want to do their job, but they also want to get a paycheck. That is an issue entirely for another day because I have an issue with that. Having that been said, I know for a fact that there was an incident that occurred when Sac PD was guarding a certain area during Antifa riots and BLM riots downtown, and a CHP officer called for Code 3 cover, making a vehicle stop on an Antifa individual, and Sac PD refused to respond. And that's pretty much what occurred in Portland when ICE officials were asking for Portland PD assistance because they were under siege in the ICE offices, and they asked for support. That's called mutual aid. And Portland decided they weren't going to be giving mutual aid that day. And SAC PD decided they weren't going to be giving mutual aid to CHP that day. That crap has got to stop. But it's all because of politics. And now, just when you don't want the military politicized, it's politicized, and now it's bled over into law enforcement as well. It's a terrible, sad situation. You want to talk about Trump? You want to talk about the crazy thing that's going on with the LSAT?
The LSATs test?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have the article?
Yeah, I do.
So they're I'm assuming a student found these questions, but the LSATs are the legal SATs.
Right.
They're the tests that are required for entry into law school for your score. So you want to go to X university to study whatever, you take the SATs. You want to go to law school, you take the LSATs, the LSATs.
Right, exactly.
And the latest version of the LSAT had a couple questions in it that were absolutely anti-Trump. So blatantly so. And look, here the purpose of the LSAT is to gauge critical thinking, looking at a specific fact pattern and being able to draw a logical conclusion or a defensible position.
Yep.
They are not supposed to invoke things into those tests that are going to evoke an emotional response or an opinion response where you really can't have a measured right or wrong. So you're not supposed to take from a legal perspective or on a LSAT test and pose a political problem.
Right. It's supposed to be a legal issue.
A legal issue, and not an unresolved legal issue. Correct me if I'm wrong on this.
No, you're
right. Not a politically unresolved legal issue.
You're absolutely
correct.
If
you have the article, would you mind reading the two questions?
Sure. It's it was from the Law School Admission Test (LSAT) prep book published by a place called Wyndham Press, which has two questions in it related to Trump. Why in an LSAT guide would you have questions related to any president in the first place? And it was reported by a place called The College Fix. The LSAT prep book uses the following statement, it says, is encountered on a daily basis through social media, entertainment, and cable news as a reasonable argument why Trump is unfit, quote, to be president. He lacks political experience and backs racist policies such as internment camps and deportation.
Now, how many internment camps has Donald Trump set up?
What the hell happened to your mic?
Is it?
Okay, there we go.
Oh, how many internment camps has Donald Trump set up? I'm trying to count the ones I know of. There's Stalag
17.
Yeah, that one, which is by Bakersfield.
Right.
Then there's
Stalag 19.
Right.
William Holden was in Stalag 19 for a while, I think.
Look, I haven't seen any internment camp. And if they're talking about facilities for the lawful enforcement of our immigration laws passed by the Congress of the United States, it is a duly passed law, constitutional law. If they're talking about that as an internment camp, I would call that a detention center or a custodial facility. Fuck. I don't see trains taking people into large areas where the gates shut and all of a sudden smokestacks get fired up.
Right.
This is the fact that is a question on an LSAT should be so offensive.
It's so over the top. So incredibly over the top. Tell you what, let me propose this. Let's finish this story, and after we finish this story, my suggestion is, you know what? Let's wrap up for tonight. And let's come back next Wednesday. What do you think about that?
Yeah. But we have more.
We do, but I don't think we're going to get to it. And I think we'd be doing you a favor because I have to tell you, and you said that you got about an hour of sleep, and to be here tonight and to try to,
am I not making sense?
No, it's not a matter of making sense. It's a matter of me looking at you right now and saying, my God, why is he here?
I look great for the camera, don't I?
Well, only in a close-up.
Oh, geez. Look at the head on that.
So the example reminds test takers that they're encouraged to ignore outside biases, judgments, and knowledge, as if they're sort of a one-person jury at a criminal trial using a standard of reasonableness under the circumstances presented by the argument. The author offers Trump's lack of political experience and supposed racist policies as the evidence or premises to justify his conclusion. The author also cites examples of policies evaluating the strength of the logical connection between the premises, and conclusion is how reasonableness is determined. Later on, they also call somebody in here in an example Ronald Thump, saying the person's, quote, manipulation of tax and bankruptcy loopholes helped grow his father's fortune. And no, we're not making this stuff up. We're not making any of this up at all. And do BZ's reversal theory. BZ's reversal theory is what would happen if the LSATs referenced something that was considered negative about Barack Obama.
Shmarock Shmomama.
Yeah, right.
Because they're not going to say his name.
I think we all have an idea of that.
And how is nobody in trouble for this, or how is the publisher not coming out and issuing a statement? Hey, this one got biased. We have no idea how this was.
Yeah.
Bias.
You can't hear, by the way.
It's like bias, but bias.
You can't hear, but the music is playing. So
I can't.
I know. We're going to go away, and we're going to fix the headphones, and we're going to let you sleep. Folks, thanks for listening to Sackheads Against Tyranny. Thanks for being here tonight in chat. Come back tomorrow for the Bloviating Zeppelins Berserk Bobcat Saloon Radio Show. That's me. Folks, see you later. Thank you.